Our next speaker is Ms. Shahina Siddiqui, the Executive Director of the Islamic Social Services Association. She represents the Islamic perspective. Shahina Siddiqui moved to Winnipeg from Pakistan, where she attended St. Joseph's College at the University of Karachi and graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree. Shahina is a freelance writer, author, spiritual counselor, speaker, and an educator. Shahina co-founded Islamic Social Services Association. She served as volunteer executive director for this association for USA and Canada from 1999 to 2003, and continues to serve as president and volunteer executive director of this association in Canada. She has also founded the Canadian Muslim Women's Institute and is one of the founding members of Canadian Muslim Leadership Institute. Shahina has received many awards, among them YMCA by WCA Peace Medal 2002, for her work since 9/11 in fostering understanding between Muslims and other religious and cultural groups in Winnipeg. Please join me in welcoming Shahina.
Thank you. I told him before, please don't read everything that's on there. My greatest achievement is that I'm a grandmother, and that's what I like to be introduced as. I want to greet you all with the greeting of Islam. Assalamu alaikum. As you can tell from my voice, I'm nursing a cold, so that's the reason for sitting and speaking to you. When I saw the topic, it's such a vast topic that it's very hard to do justice in 10 minutes, but I will try. As you know, I'm an immigrant to Canada, and immigrants choose to come here. We are not refugees who come because they have to come. They are looking for sanctuary. And so the decision was ours to make. I was living in New York with my husband when I came to visit my sister in Brandon. It was June, and she wanted to impress me coming from Manhattan, of a big city, so she brought me to Winnipeg. And of course, it was June, it was green. We went to the Assiniboine Park, we drove around the city, and I fell in love with it. And I looked at my husband and I said, and this was 1974, and I said to him, this is where I want to bring up a family. This city has a soul. And we have been here now 40 years, and I can tell you that I still feel that soul in this city. We had offers from all over the world. We could have gone anywhere, but we chose Winnipeg. As an immigrant, some things that people don't realize it, even though it is our decision, it's a very hard decision to make. When you come to a new land, you have given up your family, you have given up your school friends, you have given up your neighborhoods, you've given up everything that you are familiar with and everything that makes you who you are. And then to come to a new land and to reestablish yourselves, to make friends, to learn the language, to learn the ways of that land are very taxing and at the same time very challenging. For my family, it was easy because we spoke the language. I've studied in a Roman Catholic convent school. 99% of my teachers were Christian. So that was not an issue, but I can empathize with those who do not know the language on how difficult it can be. When we came, my husband and I had a challenge that we wanted to resolve. How are we going to bring up our children? Because these are not Pakistanis, these are going to be Canadian children. What will be their identity? Because a lot of my elder has spoken about identity. Immigrants have to decide on that identity, and then we have to nourish that identity. And so what we decided was that we are going to be Muslim Canadians. We are Canadians because this is what we have chosen to be our country, but our values are informed by our faith. So it was a self-development, a self-identity that we had to work with, and I think many immigrants work with it. We make that decision that we are now Canadian. What does that mean? How does it translate in real life? Does it mean that I have no connection to my country of birth? And those are the challenges that we face and that we resolve by ourselves. Unfortunately, there is no integration institute in Canada which helps newcomers integrate. We're just told integrate, but what does that mean? Do you even understand? Can you walk in my moccasins? Can you know what I am going through? The other thing that, of course, was the family. We come from a tradition where family is the heart of a community. If a family is healthy, the community is healthy. And if the self is healthy, the family is healthy. Here in 1999, when 4 of us women got together in the United States and said we needed Muslim social services, not that social services did not exist in USA or Canada, but we realized that the needs that our families, the challenges our families were facing, the mainstream organizations did not have an answer for it. Many of us were coming from colonized country. As you know, most of the Muslim countries were colonized. So we were still in that identity inertia, not knowing. I was a generation that my parents, my grandparents were born in free India. My father was born in an India that was under colonization, and then they moved to Pakistan. So it is also a history of refugee from one, and then they immigrated to Canada. So the cycle kind of continues. But we did have residual effects of colonization, and even today I have to catch myself sometimes asking myself, why am I thinking this way? Where is this coming from? Because this is not coming from my faith. It is definitely not coming from my culture. So it has to come from that residual effect of colonization that still exists, which I have unfortunately passed on to my son, who was born and raised here. So it does take a few generations to get rid and shake off that colonization, because what it has done to us has made us feel inferior. Our culture is inferior, our faith is inferior, we are less than our masters, our colonizers. And anybody who tells you, who has come through the colonization experience, that it did not impact them, is not facing the truth, because it has impacted us. We still have that master and slave mentality, and that is why so many times we are afraid to stand up for ourselves, because we think we deserve what we got, because somehow we are inferior. So those are the things. I just want to give you an idea that we struggle with, and I struggled with personally. So we set up these social services. It never in my wildest dreams, and so for many immigrants, that there is such a thing in Canada where the government can come and take your children away. It's never in our imagination, because if there was a problem in the family, the extended family came and helped us, right? Or gave us a break, or took the children, or whatever. But here, this was the biggest shock that we faced. And when I saw how many Muslim families were in that situation and could not understand what the heck was going on, if we had difficulty, come and help us. But why traumatize our children by taking them away? Right? This is something that we still are struggling with, and I don't understand it. And that is the reason for starting the Muslim social services, is that we would be able to. And I can tell you that this is, again, the biggest challenge for us is because we get absolutely no operational funding for our organization. I volunteer my time as executive director and have been doing that for the last 15 years. I have one staff member, but if you come and see the number of intakes that I have to do, and now we are being referred clients from India, from Hindu community, from the Sikh community, because they also are struggling with social issues. And because I share the culture, it seems that we can respond to that. And this is something that we are not paying attention to. And I have learned so much by sitting with the elders in our First Nation community, is that their families have suffered. And I want to learn from that experience that we can somehow reverse this impact on our families themselves. Because as I said, if the families are suffering, the community will suffer. There's no way you have families that are torn apart, families that are dysfunctional, and stand up and say, oh, we have a strong community. We can't even have a community if our families are suffering. Well, is the government listening to our perspective? When we talk about domestic violence, none of the communities here can say we don't have domestic violence. Of course we have domestic violence, but guess what? Our response in Canada was to punish the perpetrator by putting them in jail, right? Great. He gets out, he finds another wife, and the cycle continues. Where is healing in this process? Where is trying to keep this family together? Because to me, it is a social issue. Of course, if it crosses into criminal, we have laws to take care of that. But without giving the counseling, and this is from my faith perspective, to the entire family as a unit, you dismantle. And then you cry, oh, look at these people. Well, what do you expect, right? Because we are who we are from what our family has. So those are the perspectives that perhaps you can call the ancient wisdom that we bring with us, which I think has the potential of transforming our society. Because I'm a Canadian, I've burnt my ships. I'm not going back. But if I bring with me some wisdom, some learnings, then there has to be reciprocation on that, right? And I'm dealing with one family, just been in Canada 3 months, coming from a refugee camp and ethnic cleansing. And in 3 months, the father has been told to leave the house. Because the child learned in school that you can call 911. And so if you have an issue, if you're still dealing with, I don't want my children doing drugs. I don't want my children staying out after midnight. If you have those values, you find that you come into clash with, and then it's thrown at us, well, this is Canada. You have to learn under Canadian values. Well, how many Canadians, for example, want their kids to be on drugs? I mean, I don't understand. What do you mean you're in Canada? Don't we all have limitations? Don't we all have values that we share? That we want our children to be healthy? It is not about, oh, those people, they don't know how to. And I don't know how many times police has told me this. Oh, you people, you are too controlling. You don't give them. This is Canada. They have every right after 18 to do whatever they want. Well, guess what? My responsibility, even though my son is a father now, doesn't stop. Okay, I still have to remind him and talk to him, and that's the way we are. And we live in a joint family system. We have 3 generations living in the same house. To me, that is strength. But if I speak to so-called people outside, oh, what's wrong with you, right? They have to come and see our home and see how we live and see how confident and how healthy my grandchildren are to learn. So these are the values that sometimes we keep quiet about, but we need to share it with our Canadian neighbors and our Canadian friends and our society in general, because we do have to learn from each other. Multiculturalism is not folklorama. Folklorama is entertainment, right? Multiculturalism is to learn from each other, to grow with each other, to contribute towards each other. Because to me, that was the spirit of multiculturalism, and why Canada is so different from Europe, why we have not had the issues with immigrants as we have had in Europe, is because of multiculturalism, right? That does not in any way diminish the positions that our First Nations hold. Because if it wasn't for them, as was said, you and I wouldn't be here to begin with, right? So cultures are constantly evolving. If we were static, guess what? 70 years ago, women in Canada were not even humans. We were not recognized as persons under the law, right? So what did the white man do when they first came to North America? They removed the women from being on the band council. They took away the leadership from women because that was the European way. Well, that wasn't my way, right? So we have to know that something along the way we lost, and we need to recapture it. Our youth need to learn, whether it's my youth or your youth or all our youths, they need to learn that each and every one of them have a value. And that value is attached to their family, and that family is attached to the community, because community is only a group of families, right? And I'm only as good, as healthy as my family is. Because who do we turn to in times of crisis, right? Whose shoulder do we cry on? Who gives us the support and the courage to go on and carry on and do what we do? How is the Muslim community right now? We are under siege. We are hurting. We are constantly on the defensive. This is not a healthy way for my youth to be. They shouldn't have to apologize for two crazy guys in France, but we are made to. We are asked to, and we are ordered to. Is that a healthy way to grow, right? So if I am Canadian, which I think I am, but if the larger society accepts me as such, then what my youth are going through should be your issue as well. The media shouldn't be knocking at the door of the mosque asking, how do you think ISIL is doing? Like, yeah, I'm on their board, right? They discuss their issues with me. But you will never see that happening to a church or a synagogue or anywhere else. So we do have a double standard. We are struggling with issues, but we are not talking about them, and we are not having a conversation. I end with one story. The day that I felt that I was truly in my home in Canada is when one of my Aboriginal elders, Gladys Cook, who has since passed away. After 9/11, she used to be at every talk I gave, even if it was 3 times a day, which I did. And Gladys was always there to tell me how well I was doing and encourage me. And then we lost contact. And then I saw her at a palliative care conference where I was speaking, and she was in a wheelchair. And I went over and I said, Gladys, what happened? You're not doing well. And we talked. And she said, Shahina, I may have lost contact, but I can tell you, you have been in my prayers every day. And I said, I appreciate it, Gladys. Thank you so much. She said, no, you should know the prayer that I say for you every day. And she said, I pray for you that whoever wishes you harm, may they never succeed. That's the Canada I chose. And I hope to leave that Canada for my grandchildren. I'm not going to keep quiet when divisive politics is running our country. I am not going to keep quiet when the most affluent country in the world as homeless and the largest number of urban children hungry. This is not the Canada I signed up for. And this is not the Canada that any one of us should keep quiet and silent and accept. Because my spirituality tells me, stand up for justice, even if it be against your kid, yourself, your kin, the rich or the poor. And justice for one Canadian is justice for all. And injustice for one Canadian is an injustice for all. And that is my message to you. Stand up for each other. Just don't my community.